American way is Sahagian, and the Armenian way is Sahagian.
So I didn't get it right on either one.
It's all good. It's all good. You're awesome, so we could let that pass. We could thank you for everything. Hi, everyone. First off, I want to thank you all for being here. Tonight is a very special night because I know I drive maybe 50% of this room crazy. Calls in the middle of the night. Are you coming? Are you doing this? And really, coming together to talk about real estate and life in White Plains, New York. Why did I decide to pick this topic for this event? Well, besides my company, judynetworks, I do commercial real estate in Manhattan, New York. I work with Douglas Elliman, and I specialize in luxury retail. So that's, the type of real estate I do. We open the stores on Madison Avenue, Fifth Avenue, and the high streets across the nation, helping with their shopping experiences. And retail is a very big part when you're considering building a city and how people live and shop and do business. Retail is a huge component in developments. So many of my colleagues in the city came to me and said, well, Judy, how do we get in front of the millennials? They're not buying, or they're not this, they're not that. And, so after I heard this 10 times, I said, well, maybe this is a conversation we need to have. Also, being in New York City, a lot of the millennials, when they're starting their families, they're getting outpriced from New York City, including the boroughs. I live in Brooklyn. I live in Bushwick. I am lucky that my roommate owns the building and for 30 years, so I'm lucky on that part. But I mean, to have like a regular apartment, you're looking at least a minimum of $2,000. Now, that's a lot. So, I started to think, well, if I wanted to start a family right now, and I'm making an average salary of $50,000 a year, and I'm thinking for the future and all of that, what am I going to do? So I started thinking about communities like New Jersey. You have, well, they call it West New York now, not really New Jersey, White Plains, New York, New Rochelle. And what is important to the millennials, right? Because, 20 years ago, everybody went to the office. It was 9 to 5, and you had the whole office culture. But you don't have that anymore. Nowadays, you have everyone in Starbucks, right, Tony? Because, I had to sit in Starbucks with Tony like for a week. I was, coffeeed up there. But, so the priorities of the millennials have changed. They're like, I want to work from home. A lot of people are working from home, tech startups, even doing real estate. Unless there's a check, a closing, or something valuable to get me to that meeting, I don't need to show up to the office every day. I have a laptop, I have a smartphone. So this is the way things have changed, work-life spaces. So when you're dealing with developers, it's also, well, you're building these new developments, it's not the same thing. People don't need the same amount of space. And, modular housing has become very popular. And I had the luxury to speak with Tom maybe 2 minutes before, and we're going to get more into depth about it. And people are on the fence of whether we're going modular, for development and construction, or the old way. So on one part, when I've heard the conversation when Victoria had her radio station, I heard a lot of people saying, well, millennials are this, or millennials are that. Well, at the end of the day, if we want to do business with this demographic, we need to embrace what their needs are. They don't need to embrace what our needs are. Because at the end of the day, we're going to be retired when they become into power. So we need to start listening and looking at that and learn to bend a little bit. So, and then we can open up the conversation, and Tony will get to you about the commercial part.
Okay, well, I'm very pleased to be here. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to White Plains. In terms of what developments are ongoing right now, we have a large number. We figure, and I think my number is going to have to start going up, but we think within the next 3 to 4 years we're going to add 3,000 to 4,000 units of apartments in White Plains. It's a population of around 60,000 at this point, so that's a tremendous increase. The demand is very, very high. We've just approved over here at the Pavilion, the mall that used to have Board of Books in it, if you remember back long enough, and used to have a Board of Realtors actually, so maybe more in this room will be familiar with that, but it was originally Alexander's, where I got all my school clothes. You couldn't afford Macy's, you know, so, but that's going to be 709 high-end units, swimming pools on the roof, rooftop dining, celebrity restaurants is what they're talking about. They're going to have retail, and they're going to have, part of what we're requiring from all these projects is that we make them make adjustments that improve pedestrian access. So Maple Avenue, if you're familiar with it, pretty high speed, narrow sidewalk. They're going to pull the building back, widen the sidewalk, terrace it, put in protective plantings and things to make people feel safer, outdoor dining, all the things that improve your pedestrian connection, because we have a city that if you're sitting in my office, 255 Main Street, and you want to get to the Crown Plaza, people think it's the other side of the world. They get in their car, and it's really 4 blocks. It just is not as easy to get to as it should be, and that's so we're taking advantage of the fact that we're getting this development in here to channel their resources to help us make the city a more walkable place as part of their contribution. I will say one thing this city is not doing is we are not giving things away when people want to build residential. So we don't have an IDA because they don't want us to have an IDA because we generate a lot of activity for the county IDA. But when they want to do a pilot on a building, we basically will do market rate pilot. And it used to be almost automatic that you would waive sales tax and mortgage tax on a project. We're not doing that on residential because you can't threaten to move it to Stanford because you want to build it here. So it's huge money. We've also started collecting a parks impact fee per unit. So on this Pavilion project, it's going to be about $2.2 million. You're allowed to do that under New York State law. I graduated from law school a long time ago, but I remembered this, and so I said, you know, we should be looking at this. Law department looked at it, still applies. So all the new buildings are now contributing to that. They have to either do that or build their own park space, which they can't. It's too dense here. But we're very light on parks in White Plains, and it's an opportunity for us to increase parks, which is something millennials are looking for. So we have that project over here. We have coming in from Scarsdale, Grid Properties acquired all the car dealer lots that are over there, and that is going to be on the Post Road side, which is the old Post Road that used to go, you know, first road probably in White Plains. The Post Roads were the first. That'll have retail on the Post Road, and if you're familiar with the site, it's a fork there, so the Post Road goes to the left, Maple goes to the right. On the Maple side, it's more residential. Post Road side used to be very much commercial, but it's going on hard times. They're going to put retail on Post Road side and 11 or 12 townhouses on the Maple side, which will mask the parking. So the parking garage will be behind the townhouses, which is something I insisted on because they wanted to do a green wall, and none of that works. The only way to hide parking garages is with buildings. So that's going forward. We have a $1.2 million grant to do a study of the area around our train station. That train station is now the #1 destination out of New York City in the morning. We have 11,000 boardings a day at that station, and we have 2 stations in the city. We also have North White Plains. The station is now, as many people come in to White Plains on the train in the morning as go out of White Plains to New York City in the morning. Our daytime population goes up to about 200,000, which makes us very unique. No other city I know of has this huge increase in population during the day, and we have the staff for that. But we want to look, we own all the land along the train station basically, and we want to not only look at how we're going to develop that, and we have a lot of people standing in line and want to be part of that, but we want to make sure that what happens there works well with our community and is what the community wants. And so we've been having a robust series of community engagements, people sitting around tables with maps, with facilitators, and getting tons of information. That is also, we want to improve the connectivity between the downtown, between the train station and our downtown. Only 3 blocks of American Avenue seems like forever if you walk it, because it's very kind of blank and kind of dark. And so these are the kind of things we're working on. anything you want to hear particularly, I'm happy to talk on, but, you know.
Yes, for sure. And we're, you know, this is going to be a conversation. It's not like a presentation, you know. One thing I want to hear about, Elizabeth. You are the VP of Houlihan Lawrence and also, as I understand, the global business development person, I would say. Explain to us in your part of the industry what is the activity with millennials and also empty nesters and how they flow into what Mr. Tamraj just said.
Thank you. We've actually seen here in Westchester County an influx of millennials now that they're starting to come of age and start families of their own. And as Judy was saying earlier, they're getting priced out of places like Brooklyn and Manhattan. And what we've all always kind of thought about them was that they would like to stay in the city, that they would be different and live differently than their parents. We're finding that actually the opposite is true. As they're getting priced out of the city, they do want to come up to the suburbs. They don't want to necessarily live the same way their parents lived, so they're looking for things a little bit differently. But in Westchester, we saw, and I wrote down the thing here, in Westchester, single-family homes were up 10% in the first quarter of 2016, and a lot of that has to do with the millennial and first-time home buyers. They're looking for places like White Plains and New Rochelle because they are smaller cities, so they feel like they're not really leaving the big city behind. They're also looking for places that have villages and hamlets where they have that walkability. We talked about that already a little bit. They want parks, they want places where they can wake up, they can walk to the train, they can walk to the mom and pop shops. The millennials aren't fond of big brand names, so they don't want to go someplace where it's going to be a Starbucks. They want to, you know, the mom and pop coffee shop, they want to support all those local businesses. They're a little bit more conscious of things than our parents or than we may be. But that's a little bit about what's happening in Westchester County.
You know, it's amazing because next I'm going to come up to something very special to my heart. I was born in Brooklyn, but I was raised in the Bronx. And I'm the first generation in this country. And when I was a kid, I asked my grandfather, I said, out of all the places that we could have ended up, why the Bronx? And he looked at me and he said, because it's the only borough connected to the mainland. So we got to get out. We're coming to Westchester, right? So that brought me to have Sunny Bataj, who is also a very good friend of mine, come and talk about the borough that I love so much and help shape who I am. And you know, it is one of the, I always say to people in the city, I'm like, you don't understand. The Bronx is a gold mine. The Bronx really is a gold mine. And now the Bronx is getting the attention. And there's a lot of spillover between the Bronx and Westchester. So I had to bring the man of the Bronx to come and talk to us about that. So please, here's Sunny.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you for such a great introduction. I'm honored to be amongst you guys. And one thing I realized as a young broker growing into this business is I found out that, yes, technology is changing the industry, but what I realized was that millennials, in general, they look for convenience. So as a city like White Plains or the borough of the Bronx, as you see it in a daily basis, is growing on every single day and every single lot it's being built on, it's because of the accessibility. Every city, every town, every village, in my opinion, when you have the accessibility and the veins, which is our train lines that the mayor spoke here, it's gonna grow. Now we've been blessed that we are the no longer the poorest borough in the country, so that has helped us as well. However, also one other thing that attracts the millennials to the borough of the Bronx, an influx of beyond any other city, is the pricing. Studio apartment in the borough of the Bronx, somewhere between 1,100,000 to 1,200. In White Plains, I would say 2,000 plus. So these are some of the things that I feel brings our youth in the inner cities. Now, one thing I'd like to leave is, technology will change every day. 5 years from now, we're going to see a lot of different changes in our lives, probably in the state level, local level, whether it be the train tracks, trains, but never forget the human touch of it. Because I can tell you one thing, real estate will always be local. It'll always have a feeling to it. And I don't want you guys as young realtors in the field to ever forget that, okay, now I have this great technology. I'm on mobile phone. I no longer need to have a conversation with these folks. And I feel that's one of the biggest losses that sometimes we all take for granted. So, that's my thought on that.
You know, I just want to add, I just read some NAR, National Association of Realtors, does that generational survey every year, and one of the things that they said about millennials is another surprising fact is that they don't mind being called. So we shouldn't be so afraid to reach out and call them.
It's interesting you say that. I haven't picked up my phone in the last 2 years. It's like I have it on my voicemail. I'm like, if you really need to reach me, text me. And I think I'm a generation Y or X. You know, I'm 40. Yeah, 40. So I think I'm on the last year. I have a website to prove it. At least I felt young for a second. But Tony. So Tony is the commercial director for Keller Williams, and he does great projects, not only here in Westchester, but he does have something in the Bronx, Sonny. So we need to talk later. So Tony, tell us how people are spending money doing business and how the commercial real estate is affected by the millennial market and what they're looking for.
Hi guys, Tony Mazzulli. To kind of almost coattail off of what Sonny said, I'm looking for, because I am just on the crust, whatever that word is, of being a millennial. I'm 34, and it's what I was looking for when I lived in Westchester my whole life, but I didn't have that spot in Westchester to go. I could go shop, I could work, and I could live in a whole community. In the city, you have that. You have buildings that you could live, you could shop, and you could work. That's why the cities are so attractive to millennials, because you have that connection there, that community feel, and that's why all these office spaces like WeWork are so popular, because millennials, they're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, and that's great, but it's not a real connection. It's a fake connection. So we're longing for that real connection, and where is it going to happen? In either the workplace, office, or a retail experience, a shopping experience. Now, Amazon is actually going to be opening up brick and mortar. Everybody says, oh, bricks versus clicks. There's more online shopping than brick and mortar. But you know what? It went to an extreme. People lost that connection, that fun of going to a shopping mall and having an experience, going to a bookstore, having a cup of coffee. So you're going to see more retail centers opening up that have a well-established online market, such as Amazon. They're opening up anywhere from 300 to 400 new retail book centers in the next 5 years. But you're going to have an experience there. It's not going to just be like a Barnes & Noble. You're going to have maybe conference rooms where people could go in, have their book club, have a monthly book club. You're going to see different activities like that are happening. And it's happening in the office market too, like WeWork. You're seeing the communal area. Everybody does have separate offices to have their privacy, things like that, but you have that communal feel in the common areas. You have beer on tap, you have free coffee, you have a ping pong table, you have a lot of different things there. To give you an example, Malkin Properties, the owners of Empire Realty Trust, they own the Empire State Building, they took that over. Tony Malkin was speaking on a panel that I attended. He says nobody has their own, he's the CEO, he doesn't even have his own office. He says what they did a heat map of who reaches out to who the most in the office. So he realized he reaches out to the accounting department and 5 other people in that office the most. He put everybody in one office, and instead of emailing each other, they're talking to each other. So we're going back to the connection, which is really great. I'm excited for it because it's definitely a void in society and in real estate. So I think the retail, the office, and the multifamily is going to start seeing that. Multifamily, just like WeWork, it's shared community offices, but now they're going to have shared community living, almost like a college dorm room, and it's going to kind of take the same trend as a WeWork because you're going to have activities, you're going to have trips, all in that same community. So that's going to be another trend there, and I'm trying to bring as many people from the city to Westchester because right now the after-tax cost of rent in New York City is 51% of the after-tax income is going to rent. In Westchester, it's about 29%. So the millennials, like Judy mentioned, there's 84 million. So the biggest demographic right now is the 26-year-olds, but millennials are getting married later, of course. The average age of a millennial when they get married is the age of 30. So in the next 4 years, they're going to be getting married, starting families, and I don't know if anybody knows the tuitions in New York City for private school. They're very high, so the next option would be to come to Westchester. Yes, you have some higher taxes, but you get the schooling included. So it's definitely a viable option, and now we have the community centers, like the Westchester Pavilion, which is going to be a great project. I'm excited for it because I work about a block away from there, so I'm definitely going to be there a lot at those nice restaurants and at the pool top. So Westchester is going to be the next viable spot for the migration.
Well, awesome, Tony. So he was taking words right out of my mouth, but he's one of the people I call in the middle of the night, like, did you read this article? And, you know, one of the biggest things, you know, especially in the city, you know, my office is on 575 Madison Avenue. So between 57th Street and 86th Street, we have all the retail there where people from all over the world come to shop and everything. And, you know, for years I've been traveling the nation, speaking at ICSC, and talking to these big brands and saying, okay, what we understand in retail nationally is that we have to create the user experience. Online shopping is not going away. And the way people are doing business and communicating with each other is not going to change. Social media is the new way. We are social digital. And so, you know, let me ask you all here, what are some of the challenges that you've had, you know, dealing with this new demographic, and how do you plan to go with it or make it better? And then you can pass it down. And you guys can start having a conversation, you know, in between.
So millennials as investors, if they're actually buying a building, they haven't saved as much as their parents. So I really don't see too many millennials actually investing and buying real estate right now, commercial real estate especially. But what's happening, as of May 16th, the crowdfund agreement just passed, where now non-accredited investors can actually invest in crowd-funded real estate funds, such as Fundrise, where they secure projects that are $100 million, $200 million, something like the Pavilion in White Plains, and instead of investing that money, having no expertise and trying to be your own real estate investor, you could invest a minimum of $1,000 into that fund, and you could actually be a real estate investor. So that's going to be a new trend that's going to be really taking off in the next year, I would say.
That's called Regulation D, June 16th last year.
No, May 16th, it just passed.
Another one? Okay.
So we don't really have any issues with them because they're coming in very fast into White Plains. Our numbers downtown are very high in terms of the millennials that are here. And what they're looking for is access to transit, which we have the train station 35 minutes in Midtown. So we have two. We have North White as well, and we have the Beeline system. All comes to a point here. We're getting bus rapid transit from the Tappan Bridge as another element, which hopefully, I was on the Mass Transit Task Force, should be a continued BRT to Portchester. If you don't know what BRT is, double-decker bus, leather seats, Wi-Fi, limited stops, more like a train than a bus. It's a rubber-tired bus train, basically. The stations have displays that tell you the next bus at 4:47 and things like that. So with the millennial, to generalize, they would rather be on their phone communicating with their friends than they would drive. So I see with my 16-year-old who got his learner's permit, I don't know, 5 months ago. We've been out driving twice. There's really no rush for them because they just want to, they let me drive and then they can talk to each other. But what we're trying to do is, what I tried to do when I came in as mayor, make some changes to make the city appealing to them and get us on the map for free because you don't have to do PR. We put in, plus I believe in this stuff, we put in the first bike lanes in Westchester County. We're still basically the only community that has them. We brought Zipcar in because then on every handheld device in Manhattan, someone who's thinking about moving out of Manhattan knows we have Zipcar, so that sends a certain image about the city. You do those things, events. We're doing more and more events. We have, Oktoberfest, Cinco de Mayo. Most of the ones here run by the bid tend to be whatever the culture. Let's drink beer outside, and let's meet each other. Let's face it, right? So, but we have other events. We're doing Winterfest. We show a movie at night on Court Street. All kinds of things that we're doing to make the city exciting. We have a yoga event with hundreds of people doing yoga. Even if you don't do yoga, it's a cool thing to see. It makes you think the city's happening. All of this activity on Mamaroneck Avenue is very crucial to getting millennials as well. They want a place to go at night if they don't feel like going to Manhattan. And once you get into the swing of it and all the outdoor dining is out on Mamaroneck Avenue, you cannot beat driving down Mamaroneck Avenue on like a Thursday afternoon or a Friday afternoon and just see all the people out eating, talking, and people love to walk and see other people. And we have this long, straight boulevard that no one can touch. I mean, it's the one thing we have that we have to really protect. And I think all of those things together, access to transit, access to more affordable housing, access to nightlife, and access to jobs, that's what we're providing here, and I think that's what people want to see. And I agree, it doesn't have to be a city. People want to be able to walk. It's not just millennials, really. Some of the buildings, the infill buildings that have gone in, they lease up very quickly. They'll be 50% millennials, 50%, 55 and up, 60 and up. A lot of people are tired of the gallon of gas for a gallon of milk deal that you have in some places, and they're looking to be in a more local community. But it doesn't have to be like, well, as mayor, I'll say it has to be like that. But if you could be. I grew up in Sherbrooke Oak when I was a kid. I could walk to the library, I could walk to school, I could walk to my father bought a car by walking down the block and buying it from Mr. Geist. I mean, it was all this. That is a lifestyle component. People want to be able to do something without getting in the car. Out west, I'm talking to brokers, I probably shouldn't even say this, but out west in Seattle, Portland, all these places, the real estate listings have your walkability score in it. That's what people want to see. So you can go to walkability and look what your walk score is. And so I know that some of the buildings on North Broadway and White Plains have a 100% walk score. Walker's paradise. You can achieve most of the things you need to do in your life without getting in a car. Other parts of the city where I live, I'm at like a 47 because I can walk to the train station, but really not much else. So this is what I think the future holds. And if I can just throw in my own theory on real estate, I think the little boom that's going to happen, I think, is the close-in neighborhoods in White Plains. These are the neighborhoods that generally had the lower real estate prices. But now, I always picture those houses in San Francisco that are set on that street, and you see the city right behind them. People love the idea that they could get into a house and still be able to say to their friends when they visit, let's go out to dinner, and the car keys stay on the table. So I think we're going to see a shift. A lot of what we're trying to do at the train station is improve access from Battle Hill to the train. That's going to be, Battle Hill's going to, really shoot. Because you can own a house much better in the morning, walk down Battle Hill to the train station, and be in Manhattan in 35 minutes in Midtown. Better than a lot of parts of the city you get to Midtown. But at night a little tougher. But I think people are looking for that, and it doesn't mean everybody, because I think one of the magazines tried to put water on this and say, this is a temporary aberration. These people are going to wind up in the suburbs anyway. And I think the counter argument is, since World War II is the aberration. People used to like to live where they work and where they shop and where the kids go to school. And I think what's going to happen is some people will still want to do that, drive up to Putnam County thing. And other people are going to you're going to have more people that just want to stay. So as a mayor, my job is to make it more accommodating for pedestrians and play the hand I'm dealt, which is that. So that's what we're doing. So, no problems with them. We love them, and they're coming in.
And I think it's going to depend on what their needs are and what they're looking for, because we certainly have those millennials that are going to come up here and select White Plains because of everything that it has to offer. Like you said, there will be others that are going to select Putnam County and Northern Westchester based on what their needs are, based on price. You know, maybe they're even priced out of Middle and Central and Lower Westchester, but also maybe they want more square footage, things that they can't necessarily get in like White Plains or New Rochelle. But Judy, your question was also started about the topic of social media with millennials. And so this is a generation that is literally has their phone in their hand constantly, and they are seeking both the recommendations and the reassurances and the approval from their whole sphere of influence on almost everything that they do in life. How many of you looked at Facebook in the last month and you saw everybody trying on their prom gowns and posting pictures so that their friends can weigh on what they liked and what they didn't like? And so real estate is almost no different. We're seeing people post photos about homes that they're looking at and asking their friends what their opinions are. 75% are consulting social media. The top two things that they're asking their networks for is information on neighborhoods and referrals from friends. So one of the things that we think of in terms of being a realtor is what does your online presence say about you? Because the boomers, when they were picking an agent, they always looked toward an agent's reputation and experience. That was paramount to them in choosing and selecting an agent to work with. Millennial buyers prioritize an agent's trustworthiness and their honesty. So they want to, somebody recommends you to them, they're going to do some digging on you. They're going to Google you. They're going to try and read some blogs that maybe you've written about. They're going to see how transparent you really are. They're going to check out all your own social media sites. So those are things to consider when you want to think about working with the millennials in the future and making your online profile appeal to them and show them that you are the things that they're looking for, trustworthy and honest.
So, Mayor, if I understand you correct, now keep in mind I'm a first-generation immigrant, so you would like all us as realtors to make sure we have booze in our office so we can get the millennials in, that they could move in.
I don't think that's where I was going.
Guys, let's get the booze in a strip because we're going to get the millennials to come to us. All jokes aside,
beer on the sidewalk.
I'm actually
No, that
impressed
was what Tony
with...
was suggesting that we were. I think it was Tony.
No, it's not.
It was
Oh,
tough.
Tom too. Okay, I was trying to
I want to
help
thank Tom because I remember about 10, 15 years ago seeing White Plains what it used to be and what it is today. And it takes quite a bit of knowledge, not only in business, but friendship, colleagues, and trust to get all these businesses to come here in your town rather than go the other directions. And a few miles left or right, you do fall into another corridor, and I congratulate you for that. But what I realized with the younger generation, it's unfortunate that sometimes computers and iPhones are taking over our lives, but I found out that if they could earn your trust, if you have something that they believe in, they are committed. They will stay with you. They're not going to be as, sometimes I realize with the older generation, maybe one little fall and that's it, they come off the table. The younger generation will fall a couple times, but get back up and try it again. So I guess my advice and my thoughts would be try your best to earn their trust. I believe in pick up the phone, Judy, not don't pick up the phone. So it kills me when I can't get to someone. It makes people feel that they're not worthy of it. So my advice as a broker is pick up the phone. As a realtor, that is your lifeline. Would you stop breathing if you know you can hold your breath? The answer is no. So you want the business, pick up the phone.
Sonny, you're absolutely right. As one of my mentors said to me, she goes, if you're not accessible, you're not in business. You know, and you're absolutely right. And it's true. But that's why I say text me, right? I get about 1,000 emails a day and a bunch of phone calls, and sometimes you're in meetings. So a text could be like, you could kind of weed out if it's important or not and who you prioritize. I'm going to open up the conversation to a few questions. We'll have room for about 4 or 5 questions for the panel. But before we go into that, you know, because, you know, I'm very much into the conscious community. I do developments in Mexico, in Tulum, Mexico. We're doing a whole ecological community. We call it eco chic, from hotels to building and everything. And, you know, part of, you know, I have this little thing that I got in Costa Rica from one of my best friends, Anthony Fino and Eric, in Costa Rica last year. It's sacred geometry. So you put it behind your cell phone so you don't get, you know, like the radiation. It helps block the radiation. And since I sleep with this thing, you know what I mean? So it's just my little 2 cents. And I'm not affiliated with the company in any way. I'm just telling you how to protect yourself. So anyway, I want to thank you all. And so, does anyone in the audience have a question for any of the panelists? Raise your hand. I don't know if this is going to be long enough, but...
This question's for Sunny. Do you think the Bronx is going to get as good as Harlem, got renovated and rejuvenated eventually?
So is the Bronx going to be able to compete with Harlem?
What I can tell you, and sometimes it could be only my belief because I've spent a lot of times, I invested quite a bit of my own money in the borough of the Bronx. And I can tell you that the next 5 years for sure, and into the decade, the Bronx is going to be the next thing. Now, is it going to be Harlem 100%? It's all where you look at it. I mean, if you look at Tremont Avenue, you would think you're in the middle of White Plains Road. I mean, White Plains here, I'm a Mamaroneck with all the bars and the booze. The booze seems to be a big thing in life. It attracts people, the businesses come in. If you look at every single lot in the borough of the Bronx, there isn't one piece of property that people are not paying at least twice the value so that they could build. There were quite a bit of incentives. Those incentives are gone as of right now, unless you pre-file. But I can tell you one thing, I could almost bet you my life, anything you buy today, and I've been buying the borough of the Bronx since '94, that you will have the minimum 20 to 30% return. Now, I don't bet on stock markets, so I wouldn't know how much some of you made in the stock market. But if you're an investor or you're looking for just that small beginning, our taxes in the Bronx, and I'm not blaming you, Mayor, are $5,000, $6,000, where the same house here probably would be about $8,000, $10,000. So, say that again?
We don't have an income tax.
We don't have an income tax, but as a landlord, I mean, you're not worrying about that. So, I think it's a great opportunity. You know, all I'm going to tell you is that on an investment end, because I've done it, no one is going to sell you a Paradise Island. You're buying someone else's lemon. These developments that are going up here, they were eyesores 10 years ago. Today, they're going to be the Taj Mahal of the county of White Plains, and same thing you're seeing in the Bronx. So be prepared to know how to turn that change, because no one will give you the Paradise Island.
Thank you, Sunny. Irena.
So coming from a design point of view, how much of the zoning and regulations is helping us shape the way we need to live and create the buildings? Essentially, how is it impacting or not, and allowing architects or developers to be more creative? Is that an important development that we need to keep an eye on and think of?
Well, the big push now is to go over to form-based codes. So that is, instead of the traditional zoning where you say residential, R 1.5 in this neighborhood, and it's all about setbacks and all that, what we're looking at is going over to form-based codes, which you have actual pictures of what you want to see. And it becomes more focused on what the buildings look like than what they do, because we want to not really restrict as much in a lot of parts of the city. What's happening is people, you know, and part of this transit study, we had all these meetings, and one of the things that someone said that I thought everyone thought was funny, but actually means a lot, is someone who lives on Hillside Terrace in White Plains, so they can see the whole city before them. They're not very far from it. And she said, I would like to get up on a Saturday morning and get an egg, bacon, and cheese sandwich without getting in my car. And I'm in the city and I can't. And that's the type of thing that people want. So I think we need to move away. And then when you do the form-based code, you get better quality stuff. Because you get to look at the neighborhood and get an idea of what you want the buildings to look like in that neighborhood so they make sense, and I think you get better product. The Westmoreland Avenue area, when I came in, it's a light industrial, and we changed the zoning to permit residential, and we banned storage because it was going to turn into all storage. That is now under construction inside the building Lifestyle Apartments in the former Norton building. But that is an area where we have put in requirements about what the buildings have to look like. As part of this project, we're probably going to be looking at doing an overlay zone that's going to have the components of a form-based code. And we really care about what the buildings look like because, and the materials. That's the other thing I would say. We're going to be people have been burned. They look, you know, you get those drawings, renderings, the kids with the balloons. Everyone always has balloons in the renderings. And sometimes, you know, then you see the building up close and it's fiberglass or whatever on the outside. So when we want boards on everything now. We want to see actual materials because it makes a big difference. And as I'm telling you as an architect, quality of architecture makes all the difference in the world. Especially if you have a building you think might be a little big for the site. If it's designed right, it doesn't feel like that. It steps back from the street. So I think it's huge.
Okay, so we got time for...
I'm sorry, I'm just going to say something in connection to the Bronx, though, just so that we're not left out. One of the main things that the Bronx is booming is because of the upzoning. So whenever a city or a community upzones, different ideas, bigger players come in place and give you the opportunities to build what you want. I could tell you the construction has become better than 10, 15 years ago. I used to feel that they're building shoeboxes. Now things are changing. We're no longer allowing row after row after row after row, but that brings that restaurant. So what we're trying to do as well in the Bronx, something very similar to what's happening here. People want to have their own little community without really traveling to the city for that sandwich or that local mom and pop store. So.
Okay, so we got time for
Just one more question.
one more. Amir, I gotta give it to Scott.
No, we'll share it. We'll share it.
You'll share it?
Share a real quick question.
Okay,
You asked the first part, I asked the
Yes,
second.
okay.
short answers.
Short answer. Folks, well, the big companies are like Keller, Houlihan, and even Exit. What kind of cool techie apps you have for these iPhone staring kids?
One more
Like for
time.
communication or for search, for
What
property.
was the question? What kind of
What
cool?
are the companies putting out for cool techie apps so they can search or communicate with companies?
Elizabeth, you want to take that one?
Well, I think it's, because everything is mobile and they're doing everything from their cell phones, it's important that we all have websites that convert easily for mobile to make search really very easy and seamless for the millennial buyer. Just a really short answer. The other thing I was thinking of was in terms of technology, obviously texting, things like that they're using for communication. But I think it also depends. We work with a lot of Chinese clients. We've had a lot of press about that recently with the new Chinese website that we have, and the millennial Chinese are looking to communicate on a platform called WeChat. So, we're doing a lot of investigating and working on different little platforms to communicate with all different types.
Javier, my good friend
Yes.
for many years.
I remember the
Sure.
first one. Mr. Mayor, Tom, what, has the city done a 10, 15